Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us another live session in IGP. Today I will be presenting webinar number 323 and the topic is role of soft skill in effective classroom management. Today we have a powerful speaker from India. Let's welcome our speaker. Hello sir. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes sir, I can hear you.
Right, very well. So let me introduce myself first. I am Dr. Anurag Kumar, faculty, School of Languages and Literature, Sri Mata Vaishno Devi University, India. I am a PhD from Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee, popularly known as IIT Roorkee, right? And I have taught at University of Lucknow, University of Delhi before joining Sri Mata Vaishno Devi University. I have published a book, African American Literature, The Politics of Marginal Space in the Novels of Gloria Naylor, and have also published many Scopus and SCI papers in various international journals. Right? I am precisely teaching soft skills to BTech students, undergrad students. I'm also teaching Dalit literature and literary theory to English honors and MA English students. I have guided around 10 PhD scholars and am presently looking forward the various institute responsibilities. Right. Today, I shall be presenting on role of soft skills in effective classroom management. So before we begin with our presentation, I hope you can see my presentation, right? Can you see my presentation, please? Anyone can confirm?
Yes sir, it's visible. So make it
Yes?
presentation now.
Here it is. Can you see my presentation?
Yes sir, I can see your presentation. Please make it presentation now.
Right. All right. I'll do that. I hope it is visible to everyone, right? So I
Yes
shall
sir,
be
it's
talking about role of soft skills in effective classroom management. Before we go into the role of soft skills in classroom management, let's look at the importance of soft skills, especially in the organizational context, or you can say the business scenario, right? So, if you look at the data and the surveys that have been conducted in past couple of years, you can very well see the importance of soft skills, right? And how these employers and companies and industries have been ranking soft skills, right? So if you look at this present slide, you can see that the top five skills that the industries and the employers, the recruiters are looking forward in the undergrad students are coming from soft skills, right? So you may get confused as to how communication, teamwork, technical leadership, and managerial skills are soft skills. So let me define what soft skills are. Soft skills are social skills, right? Or we call interpersonal skills that are needed or required in order to negotiate socially in a personal life and in an organizational context. So all those skills that you require or need in order to negotiate with or in order to communicate and converse effectively in an organizational context, in a personal context, and in a social context, they are termed as soft skills, right? They are also called social skills or interpersonal skills. So, if you look at communication, teamwork, technical, leadership, and managerial skills, they fall into the category of what you call soft skills. So, what I'm trying to say right here is that most of the organizations, most of the employers, they seek soft skills as top five skills in an undergrad, or a postgrad student, in order to employ him or to think that he is probably the most suitable employee or prospective employee of the institute or company or whatever, right? So what I'm trying to say is that they are soft skills are treated one of the most important factors and dimensions in order to be fit person for being recruited in a particular company, or right, that precisely on a global level. It's not about in a particular culture or a locale. It's almost all the companies or industries that are looking forward to. Once again, if you look at the Corporate Recruiters Survey Report 2017, once again, you can see right here that oral communication, listening skills, adaptability, written communication, and presentation skills again constitute top 5% of skills, right, that are looked forward by the recruiters or employers in a prospective employee, right? So that simply means again it has been reiterated, right? It has been reinstated that soft skills constitute top 5 skills. Moving ahead, if you look at across industries, probably you can see that the top 1 or top 5 or even top 10 skills are coming from soft skills, right? Though there is a little variation you might see, right, in different kind of sectors. Like in counseling, you might probably need oral communication as the first, qualifying for the first rank, while in energy sector or utility sector it could be listening skill, right? But if you analyze those all these industries, coming from counseling to energy to finance to healthcare, technology, manufacturing, and products services, probably you would find that all the top skills are coming from soft skills, right? So that again, reiterates the point that soft skills are becoming one of the most important skills across industries, as you can see through this particular survey report 2017, that soft skills have been constituting. And finally, right, if you look at this, the recruiters corporate recruiters survey 2017 report, you can once again see that recruiters indicate greater need for teamwork and managerial skills. And teamwork and managerial skills are one of the core skills that constitute soft skills, right? I'm not going to bore you much with the data right here, uh, but this has been just presented before you in order to highlight the importance of soft skills in the contemporary world, right? This is precisely what we have seen in the sectors, what you call industries or corporate or organization or institutes, right? These are the skills are looked forward, right? However, if you look at, right, these are the requirements, or these are the expectations that a company or the employer normally has from an employee. However, if you look at organizational practices, there appears to be a contradiction, right? There are two things you might look at. One is what the employers look forward in an employee, prospective employee, right? Of course, all kind of standard and idealized things, as is very clear from this survey. However, if you look at organizational practices, right here, you can see that there is a contradiction, right, between the organizational practices and the aspirations or requirement of the sector, right? As is very clear right here in this particular slide that you can see right here, though it has been meant with a humorous intention. However, what you find is that it conveys a very subtle, very very clear, right, disconnection between the person who is communicating with the people, what you call listeners, he is communicating with, right? What he's trying to say, hang in there, folks, just 20 more slides to go, right? So what exactly happening right here is that there is no connection between the presenter and the listener, right? Or you can say there is lack of interpersonal communication between the presenter and the listener or the audience right here in this case. Probably the reason right here is that the presenter is relying more on technicalities, right? Or what you call technology, right? Here, he's more relying on slides than to communicate interpersonally with audience, and therefore the audience are relegated as unimportant, right? They have no say, and even the presenter becomes unimportant, and the slides, what we call PowerPoint slides, become more important, right? So what is happening right here in this organizational context is that humanness or human being or interpersonal communication between human beings is relegated unimportant, while technical communication, what you call, right, the use of technology in communication becomes more important, right? So what is lacking right here is human connection or human touch, probably, right? And that probably brings about disconnection between the presenter and the audience. This is metaphorically extended to the entire organization, where they rely more on technology than on human connection as such, right? We shall see it in further slides, right? You see, in this case, too, the same thing is being reiterated in a different manner, right? He says that, what do you mean we do not communicate? I sent you email on Monday. That means though both of them are available probably on a same platform, maybe in the office, maybe in a particular room, right? But they do not prefer to communicate face to face, what you call interpersonal manner. Rather, they rely more on email, right? So they are relying on technology more than human communication, right? So precisely in this case too, what is being reiterated in an organizational practice is that interpersonal communication, which is in terms of at the time of recruitment is being more emphasized and highlighted, but is not practiced in the organizational context, right? Moving ahead, we can once again see that communication within the company is really bad according to this report. And why wasn't I told about this? This is precisely what the authority, what you call senior management, is saying. And why wasn't I told about this? That means there is a very clear distance between the employee and the authority, what you call the top management, right? So that means on the one side, there is a gap within the organization in terms of communication, but that is not being considered, that is not being looked seriously by the top management, right? Therefore, probably this entire interpersonal communication lack or gap is coming probably from top management, which is which was very particular at the time of recruitment, right? Looking forward to all kind of soft skills, right? Further, we can see right here, we know that communication is a problem, but the company is not going to discuss it with the employees. So you can see the stubborn, the adamant attitude of the top management towards its employees. They know that there is certain kind of communication gap. They know that there is a problem within the organization, but they are not willing to address it. They are not willing to discuss this. They are not willing to resolve this kind of problem right there, right? So there the gap further widens, and there's no audit in terms of communication that further results in certain kind of non-practice of interpersonal communication, right? Moving ahead, right. You can see in this picture what is being reiterated here is that the top management probably does not trust the employees. You can see you get a half hour for lunch, Barnes. My dog here will see to it you do not go over that time. That means the employers, what you call the top management, does not trust its employees. And trust and care, once again, constitute very important factors of soft skills, something which is missing right here. Now, what we have seen so far is that there is this aspiration or there is this requirement of the industries for soft skills, right? What you call interpersonal skills or social skills. But on the other side, what is being practiced in an organizational context here is that they do not practice soft skills or interpersonal skills within the organization, and there's no promotion also, right, of of practicing the soft skills in the organizational context too, right? So we are aware about the importance, its scope, and its seriousness, which is associated with social, personal, and organizational space, right here. But our motto is little different right here in this presentation. And what is that? We are looking forward to how soft skills can be employed in order to effectively manage your classroom, right? In order to effectively manage your classroom. Right. So, if you look at particularly from a South Asian context, you would probably agree that normally a South Asian classroom constitutes of of linguistically and culturally diverse students. That means all the teachers probably face this challenge of managing a diverse classroom, right? Where students come from different linguistic, cultural, and many more diversity in the classroom. So it's a day-to-day challenge for a teacher to manage his classroom effectively. So we would probably look at how the teachers can best employ soft skills in order to manage the classroom, effectively manage the classroom, and particularly a diverse classroom, right? So, in this case, we shall see what are the expectations of the students are from a teacher, right? And how the teacher's behavioral or what you call immediate behavior helps in managing the classroom, right? So the first thing probably that we are going to look at right here is students' perceptions of the importance of the communication skills to effective teaching. That means, do you think that there is a relationship between the use of communication skills by a teacher in effectively managing a classroom? So, what are teacher students' perceptions probably that we are going to look at? Right? That means if a teacher is very effective communicator, does he have some impact on his students, or does he not have any kind of there's no relation between the use of communication skills by a teacher and its impact on students. Probably we shall look at right here in this presentation. The second thing probably that we shall look at is students' perceptions of the use of communication skills by specific teachers and their relations to students' learning and motivation. We know that there is a relationship between a teacher and student, and if we are going to look at further, we can see that this relationship between teacher and student is a kind of interpersonal relationship, right? That means this relationship between the teacher and student is constituted in a similar manner as you have any other interpersonal relationship, where there are certain aspirations, right? There are certain mutual goals that both of them follow. For example, if you look at an interpersonal relationship in a social context, you have friends, right, with whom you can communicate interpersonally. If you analyze your friendship or the interpersonal communication that you are practicing with your friend, probably you would find that there is a mutual goal that you are following, right? That means you and your friend has certain kind of mutual goal that you are following, right? In a similar manner, if you look at student teacher relationship, it's an interpersonal relationship, and both of them have certain common goals, both the teacher and the student. And probably this common goal, right, will be of learning and imparting education, right, brings about teacher and student together in an interpersonal context. If you look at the definitions of certain authors and critics, they also support that there is a relational process that follows the developmental stage from initial contact through intimacy and final dissolution, right? So the teacher student relationship is a kind of relational process, right, that goes into certain kind of stages: initial contact, intimacy, and dissolution, right? And this is precisely what is the developmental stage that you follow in any other interpersonal spaces, right? You, when you make friends with other people, or when you establish certain kind of relationship with somebody else, you follow that initial contact. You initially contact that particular person, then you bring about intimacy in your relationship, and then finally dissolve, right, as teacher student relationship does. So there is a similarity in terms of interpersonal relationship of student and teacher and any other interpersonal relationship, as is further being reiterated by Graham, says a process of relational development that requires effective interpersonal communication skills. Right. So teacher-student relationship is a process of relational development. It requires effective interpersonal communication skills. Right. So there is a very close connection that exists between teacher and student in terms of interpersonal communication skills. Mind it, why I use this term interpersonal communication, right? This is precisely what I mean by soft skills. Soft skills are interpersonal skills. Further, if you look at the teacher-student relationship, right, I'm looking at from the perspective of soft skills, what we call interpersonal skills. We look that it's a process of meeting one another, exchanging information, and adjusting and developing expectations similar to what any two individuals would go through in developing a relationship. So this relationship between teacher and student follows the similar agenda, similar process, right, similar structure that the any other interpersonal skill, interpersonal communication, interpersonal relationship would probably follow, right? As in an interpersonal relationship, people have certain kind of mutual goals. The teacher and student also has certain kind of mutual goals that requires certain kind of ability to negotiate with one another and resolve conflict, right? So in interpersonal relationship, you have that kind of ability or that kind of requirement to negotiate with one another and resolve conflict. So the teacher student relationship also has that kind of negotiation with one another and has ability to resolve that kind of conflict. However, there are certain dissimilarities between teacher and student relationship in comparison to a common interpersonal relationship. And they are the equality that is typically associated with friendship. That means in an outsider interpersonal communication, you have that kind of friendship. In terms of student teacher relationship, a teacher can be friendly but not a friend. So, that equality that is normally or typically associated with friendship is something that is lacking in student teacher relationship right here. So, otherwise, it seems to be quite similar to any other interpersonal communication skills. Now, it also has certain kind of time constraints not typically associated with friendship. In friendship, you are not constrained by time. That means you can call a friend anytime, right? You can have that kind of freedom or liberty, but in a teacher student relationship, probably time constraint beyond office times probably is not possible. So in terms of time and in terms of equality, probably teacher and student relationship mark a shift from a common interpersonal relationship. Otherwise, otherwise, if you look at that, there is a close similarity between teacher and and student relationship, right? That means that student and teacher relationship identify certain kind of soft skills, or they require certain kind of soft skills in order to establish certain kind of relationship, certain kind of relational behavior. Now, let's look at communication skills and immediacy behaviors that are required in order to be effective teacher, or in order to manage your class effectively, right? There are 8 immediacy behaviors or communication skills that have been identified in order to effectively manage your classroom. The first one is conversational skills, which is the ability to initiate, maintain, and terminate enjoyable, casual conversation. That means, are you as a teacher have that ability in yourself where you can have that 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 ability to initiate, right, the discussion or conversation, right, or a dialogue within the class? Are you in a position to maintain that dialogue or conversation or communication and terminate it enjoyably, right? That means, though the conversation skill in an outside context, right, is just initiate, maintain, and terminate enjoyable casual conversation, but here in teacher-student relationship, though it's very formal within the class, but it also follows the same kind of structure of initiation, maintaining, and terminating enjoyably. That means, is your teaching brings about that conversational style of teaching where you can engage those students in a conversation, in a discussion, right, where the students feel important, right, of being part of a particular class, right? They are not on the receiving end, rather, they become the participant as in a conversation, right? So, are you in a position to bring about that particular skill in your lecture or in your conduct of the class? Next point is referential skills, which are required in order to effectively manage your class, right? Differential skills are the ability to convey information clearly and unambiguously. That means, are you in a position to 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 deliver your information very clearly and unambiguously without bringing about any ambiguity, right? And these clarity and unambiguousness are one of the most important characteristics of communication skills that that are required for being an effective teacher. The next is ego supporting skills. Ego supporting skills are the ability to make another feel good about himself or herself, right? That comes more in a behavioral context or in a behavioral content, right? Where you are supporting your students, you are motivating your students to feel good about himself or herself, right? That means you are making student feel important about himself, important about being the part of teaching learning activity, important about being the part of the class as such. The next is comforting skill, which is the ability to make others feel better when depressed, sad, or upset. That means, do you have that kind of tinge in you? We can counsel others, especially at the time when they are feeling depressed, sad, or upset. If you can do that, probably you can maintain a more interpersonal, more relational, right, dimension between the student and the teacher, right? If you are in a position to comfort your students, if you have that kind of comforting skill in you, right? Moving ahead, you have conflict management. Are you in a position or do you have the ability to reach mutually satisfying solutions in conflicts? There could be certain conflictual situations that arrive even in teacher student relationship, right? As a teacher, you must possess certain kind of ability where you can reach to mutually satisfying solutions, especially in a conflict in the times of the conflict. Moving ahead, persuasive skills, right? If you have the ability to get people modify their thoughts and behaviors, right? As a student, you may find that there are certain times where you have to put certain ideas which may or may not be completely followed and subscribed by the students. So, do you have that kind of persuasive skills where, with the help of evidence, with the help of facts, with the help of certain kind of references, are you in a position to convince the other people, especially students in this context, to modify their thoughts and behavior, right? As per your ideas, as per your views and thoughts. The next is narrative skills. Narrative skill is the ability to entertain through jokes, gossips, stories, etc. There may be certain kind of teachers who may not believe that in an official, in a very formal classroom, jokes, gossips, and stories should be narrated. But if you want to effectively manage your class, right, you must adopt the ideas of cracking jokes in a class, gossiping with the students, and telling stories. Because if you believe uh, from the different kind of critics who say that concentrating for more than 15 minutes on a particular thing becomes difficult. So students can also not concentrate on a hardcore technical subject for more than 15 minutes. So you need a breather. in between. And probably the narrative skills help you in certain kind of interlude or in certain kind of breather, in certain kind of comic relief from this entire otherwise serious and formal discussion in a classroom. So in that way, you can keep on engaging your students even on a very complex formal educational topic, right? So jokes and gossips and stories, play a very important role in managing your classroom effectively. And finally, regulations. These are the abilities to help someone who has violated a norm to fix the mistake effectively. You can see, I probably as a teacher, many of you could have experienced that in your classroom there appear to be certain kind of teachers who, certain kind of students who have not that kind of attitude where they can learn seriously, right? There can be certain reasons behind that, right? There are positive attitudes of the teachers, probably there are negative attitudes of the teachers, what you call ineffective teaching, which may bring about that kind of students who may try to defy the classroom norms, who may try to go wayward, right? So what happens, like, the academic success of these students is compromised, that all of us know that they could be punished in many of their wrongdoings. They could be suspended from the institute. There could be many more adverse effect of not following the regulations may happen. But positive teacher student relationship, right? This is precisely what you call regulation, can bring about the favorable outcome within that student. So, as a teacher, you need to evaluate yourself, you need to audit yourself whether you have that positive teacher student relationship or not, right? Are you lacking any of these communication skills, right? Which are what you call, these are 8 soft skills. Are you lacking any of them? Because they may further, right, help you in otherwise managing your classroom, and particularly those students who are not following the regulations, who are not following the classroom norms, right? So this is one aspect what you call communication skills. Of course, all of these skills, as a teacher, you need to demonstrate in a classroom, and as a student, the student always perceives, observes these skills, may be consciously, may not be consciously, or what you call unconsciously, right? In a consciously, when I say consciously, that means the student is giving you feedback on certain kind of communication skills, right? So that is a kind of a very conscious observation or perception on the part of the teacher, on the part of the student, to evaluate these of your communication skills. But unconsciously also, that reflects in the managing of the classroom, that reflects the student, between student and teacher relationship, right? So both consciously and unconsciously, the students are always observing you, they are always perceiving your communication skills, and probably that would further impact the performance of the student academically and otherwise, apart from your classroom management, right? So what we have tried to look at is that there are certain communication skills that must be demonstrated and possessed by the teacher, and that are being evaluated, observed, and perceived by students, which has certain kind of positive and negative impact on students' performance, motivation, and participation. Right? One thing. Now we are moving to certain other aspect which is called immediacy behavior. So we have looked at what you call communication skills, and now we are looking at immediacy behaviors of the teachers. So first of all, let us look at what immediacy behaviors are and what you call immediacy behavior. Immediacy behavior is nothing but a perception of closeness between people. Right. In this context, we are looking at the closeness between student and the teacher. Right. That means when we see that there is an immediacy behavior between the student and the teacher, that means that there is a very closeness, or there's a close association that exists between the student and the teacher. Right. So when we have to look at, right, in an institutional context or in a classroom context, we see that certain teachers demonstrate immediacy behavior. That means they are very close to the students, that there is a closeness between students, and this closeness is practiced by the teacher and perceived by the students. This closeness, what you call immediacy behavior, has a very positive impact on student teacher relationship. We shall look at in detail. There are two kinds of immediacy behaviors, right? One is verbal immediacy and the other is non-verbal immediacy. Verbal immediacy consists of behaviors such as calling students by names, asking students about themselves, and asking for students' opinion. Right? So I do not know what is the strength of your class, but in India, right, your class strength may vary from 20 students to 160 students in a class. Right. So if you're teaching a very large number of students in your class, say 160 students or 200 students, it becomes very difficult to know each and every student by name. But if you do not know your students by name, probably, right, they may feel that they are not part of the class. Probably they may feel as unimportant within the class. So as a teacher, right, in order to demonstrate your verbal immediacy, you try to connect with your students, and the first step is knowing each other personally, right? Establishing an interpersonal context, maybe within the class, maybe outside the class, so that you can get very close to your student. Asking student about themselves, right? So it requires nothing but to just ask how they feel, about how are they, how they are putting up in the hostel, and doing this or that. That would further establish a very close rapport between student and the teacher. And the third thing is that is practiced within the classroom, asking for students' opinion, right? Maybe as a teacher you believe or you may not believe, but asking students' opinion, right, brings about the close participation of the student, and it also brings about a perception within the student that the teacher thinks that that thoughts and ideas of the student within the classroom context are important. So that increases students' motivation and participation within the classroom context. Right? These are the demonstration of verbal immediacy on the part of the teacher. Of course, they are perceived by the student. Now, moving to the next, what we call non-verbal immediacy. Non-verbal immediacy consists of Behaviors such as smiling at students, making eye contact, moving about the classroom, and using vocal variety, right? All of us know what nonverbal communication is, right? Using all kind of right tactile and time and distance and gestures and facial expressions, etc. So those behaviors, right, if just passing by the students, you just smile at them, right, that would again demonstrate certain kind of immediacy or closeness. While teaching within the class, if you maintain eye contact, that means you are ensuring the participation of the student, and probably that would also present you as more authentic, more credible, right, more close to the students if you make eye contact with them. Keep on moving about the classroom. That means if as a teacher you keep on moving within the classroom, what happens is that you probably your attention is shifted from almost each student within the class. So all the students in that way feel connected and important, right, in the classroom. And use vocal variety, that also brings about certain kind of certain kind of motivation, because if you keep on speaking on a similar tone and vocal similarity, that would may bring about certain kind of what you call boredom within the classroom, right? So, verbal immediacy and non-verbal immediacy, apart from the communication, eight communication or soft skills that you practice as a teacher, you demonstrate as a teacher, right? This immediacy behaviors, both verbal and non-verbal, are complementing. So, or what you call, there is a balance that is required between the soft skills that we had talked about and your immediacy behavior that you must demonstrate and practice. Or there may be an overlapping between these two, that is soft skills, eight soft skills or communication skills and immediacy behavior. But both of them are complementary to each other. Both of them collectively constitute the effective soft skill, social skill, behavior of the teacher, especially in a context of the classroom. And I hope that if a teacher is very consciously demonstrates both the soft skills and immediacy behavior, the classroom management goes in a very effective manner. Let's look at how students perceive communication skills and immediacy behavior. So, what we have talked about so far is that as an effective teacher, you must possess, you must demonstrate soft skills and immediacy behavior, or what you call communication skills and immediacy behaviors, may be collectively called soft skills, right? Now we are shifting to the different stakeholder, what you call students, how they perceive the teacher's communication skills and immediacy behavior in a classroom context. There are certain studies on this that have been taken help from when I have prepared this presentation. So we shall look at what student actually looks at in the teachers when he perceives the communication skills and immediacy behaviors of the teacher. The first thing is, what are students' perceptions of the importance of communication skills and immediacy behaviors? What do they think is more important in terms of communication skills and immediacy behavior? Maybe certain communication skills are more important, right, and certain immediacy behaviors are more important than others. But what constitutes effective teaching as per students' perception in terms of communication skills and immediacy behaviors? This precisely we shall look at. Also, we shall look at gender differences. Do male and female students differ in their perceptions of communication skills and immediacy behavior in regard to importance, motivation, and learning? We shall look at precisely that is there any difference in terms of perception of communication skills and immediacy behavior as long as gender is concerned? Do women think communication skill is more important or immediacy behavior is more important? Do female or male think otherwise? We shall try to find out in this presentation. The next is what is the relationship between students' perceptions of teachers' communication skills and immediacy behaviors and students' motivation and learning? Do you think that if the teacher is effective communicator and teacher demonstrates both verbal and non-verbal immediacy behavior, is it going to help students in terms of motivation and learning? Or we can say that student is a particular student feels motivated and motivated towards learning within the classroom context if the teacher demonstrates communication skills and immediacy behaviors. We shall try to find out once again. Now moving ahead, there are certain skills that students think that they are very important. The first is referential skill. Differential skill on the part of the teacher, as has been perceived in different kinds of studies by students, is the one which involves explaining things clearly and facilitating understanding. So, if the teacher within the classroom context demonstrates and practices explaining of concepts and ideas in a very clear manner and facilitates understanding of the student, right, referential skills are right, they become more important. Referential skill is also perceived by students as important because they think that it helps reduce feelings of uncertainty. That means they become certain about what they are looking forward to, what is their goal, what they must follow, what they should not follow, do's and don'ts, and everything becomes quite clear. Referential skill also demonstrate that failing to understand the teacher's goal may lead to frustration and failure. That means the teacher must very clearly demonstrate that this is the goal, this is particular thing that we are going to study, right? This is how we are going to study, and tries to find out or evaluates on time to time whether the student is in a position to understand the concepts and ideas being discussed in a class or not. If the teacher fails to probably engage the student in its goal or in his or her goal, the student may lead towards frustration and failure. Not understanding teacher's goal may further create certain kind of uncertainty and may reduce liking. So referential skills are one of the most important skills perceived by the students in the classroom, that whatever ideas and concepts are being taught by the teacher, they must be presented in a very clear, very unambiguous manner. And the teacher must ensure the facilitating of understanding of the student. This may fall under the category of content delivery. That means The teacher must have that kind of power of expression, power of communication, and he or she must be in a position to deliver the content with the help of the power of expression in a very clear and unambiguous manner. So the students perceive that content is important, but the delivery of the content, the expression of the content is equally important, which must be demonstrated by the student, by the teacher. The student therefore ranks referential skills as one of the most important skill that the teacher must possess as per the perception of the student. Moving ahead, ego support is ranked as second most important skill, we call soft skill, that the teacher must possess. What is ego support? That helps the students believe in themselves and strive to their best. That means if the student feels important and part of the conversation or the process, right, that brings about more confidence in the student, right, and therefore it also gives the student an opportunity to give their best. It involves encouragement and confirmation, right? That means at the, or the part of the teacher, that how the teacher, or is the teacher in a position to encourage his or her students and confirm as to what they are doing is they are going on a right path. If the student knows that he's being appreciated for whatever he or she is doing, if he becomes sure about whatever he or she thinks and does is important, is right, probably he feels motivated, probably he feels confidence, he or she feels confident about himself. This may further, eco support may further provide a way of empowering and motivating students as learners in the classroom. So they not only remain a passive student in the classroom, they become active learners in the classroom because they think that they are part of this teaching learning process. What they are doing is the right thing, and this is further being helped by the teacher through encouragement and confirmation that creates certain kind of an environment of what you call confidence. Moving ahead, so you have seen that there are two main, what you called communication skills that are being given, the most importance by the students in terms of their perception. First is referential skill, and the other is ego support. If you look at referential skill, that falls within the ambit of what you call content, the subject matter. What if we look at the ego support, that falls into the category of what you call behavior of the teacher towards their students. So far we have seen that there must be a close connection between the delivery of the content and teachers' behavior towards the students. These are given the most important by the, they are perceived as the most important dimensions of effective teacher. That the teacher must be in a position to demonstrate uh, the quality of delivering the content, what you call concepts and ideas, in a very clear and unambiguous manner, facilitate learning and understanding in the class, and he or she must be in a position to demonstrate certain kind of behavioral skills, right? Where they must make their students confident about themselves, where they must value the opinion, right, of the students, where they can encourage the students to go on a right path, where they can appreciate the student for doing the right thing, right? So these are the two, one of the most important skills that the students looking forward to. So in a way, I can argue or claim on the basis of students' perception right here of these two important skills is that as an effective teacher, or in order to effectively manage your classroom, these are the two most important soft skills that you must possess. One is the referential skill, and the other is ego support, where you deliver your content in a very clear and unambiguous manner, and where you practice certain kind of behavioral connection with your student. Right? Now, moving to the next, how the immediacy behaviors help the teacher-student relationship, or help in effectively managing the classroom, right? So of course the communication skills are important in terms of in terms of creating a very positive environment within the class. We shall look at how the students perceive the immediacy behavior of the teacher, that means closeness of the teacher with the students, and how it impacts effective classroom teaching, effective classroom management. What is immediacy behavior? As we had already talked about, that it reduces the perception of distance. So if the teacher practices immediacy behavior in a classroom, that means if the teacher demonstrates certain kind of closeness with the teacher, what the student feel that they are very close, that they are the part of that particular process that is going on, teaching learning process. It reduces the perception of distance, right? Normally what happens when a student goes to the class, especially in a new class, there is a distance between the teacher and the student. And of course, if you are an effective teacher, if you are a positive teacher, by by the time it's two, three, four classes, right? There exists a very good positive relationship between student and teacher. That means teacher creates an environment of closeness between the teacher and the student. So it's through immediacy behavior the teacher demonstrates the closeness between the teacher and the student. So the student perceives that that immediacy behaviors are important in order to reduce the perception of distance. It also facilitates communication. That means if you allow, or if you establish a closeness between yourself and your students, students would not hesitate in communicating, and particularly asking certain kind of risky questions in a classroom, right? They would probably not fear, right, being relegated as foolish for asking a risky question in a classroom. So that means if if you if you demonstrate that closeness with your student, they would be further encouraged, right, to communicate with you, right? and that communication would further enhance their classroom motivation and participation. Right, immediacy behaviors are also interdependent. Interdependent in terms of the communication and the closeness. That means, as a teacher, if you allow the closeness, that would further facilitate communication. That means there is an interdependence between the behavior of the teacher and the communication within the classroom. Right? So that means if as a teacher you allow, if you practice that closeness, the students would feel motivated to communicate, to participate within the classroom as such. Now, let us look at the findings of this presentation. So, we had talked about that there are 8 communication or soft skills that are important in order to be effective teachers. You must possess those soft skills in order to effectively manage your classroom. And your soft skills, which you call communication skills, are complemented by your immediacy behavior, both verbal and non-verbal. Right? Then we had looked up as students' perception about the communication skills and immediacy behavior. And we have found that ego support and referential skills are one of the most important factors or dimensions of effective teaching. When we look at in terms of immediacy behavior, the students also perceive that immediacy behavior are of equally important of the teacher in order to bring about a positive student-teacher relationship, because it helps students in going close to the teacher, asking these key questions and so on. This is precisely what we have seen. Now, if you look at the findings of this presentation, we find that there are 2 primary dimensions of effective teaching, what we call effective classroom management. One is the content and the other is relational. Content means the concepts and ideas and the content that you deliver in a classroom, and how do you deliver, the kind of relationship that you establish with your teacher. So content must be delivered to your students in a very clear, unambiguous manner, using your powerful referential expression, while at the same time you must establish a relationship between your teacher, between the teacher and the student. Content becomes more delicious probably when you establish that relationship between your student and you. However, if you analyze the student's perception beforehand, you would probably agree with me that you need to have a balance between these 2 dimensions. That means content and relational. It's not only the content, which is delivery of the content, which is looked at by the student or perceived by the student as an important factor, but they also perceive the behavior of the teacher within the classroom. And I think you would probably agree with me, and there could be certain kind of experiential reality that you could have faced, that there are teachers who are very good at content delivery are not much popular, probably because they lack that relational aspect. So that simply means that if you just pay attention to one part of effective teaching, probably in this case the content, you may probably may not be in a position to effectively manage your class. Why? Because the student may not completely feel motivated and involve and engage and participate in the classroom. However, if you just practice relational dimension of the teaching, effective teaching, that means if you go to the classroom, establish a relationship with the student, closeness probably, and crack jokes and tell stories and gossip. However, you do not deliver any kind of content, probably that would also not sail you through in managing your classroom beyond one or two. So that means content and relationship are complementary to each other. And as a teacher, you must identify and you must agree with that you need a balance between these two dimensions, content and relational, in order to maintain an effective classroom management. So let's look at some other findings of this presentation, that when teachers and students move beyond the formal teacher-student roles and begin to see each other as individuals, interpersonal relationships are formed. That means, of course, you as a teacher and a student, of course, exist. This is a very formal relationship. However, in order to establish certain kind of interpersonal relationship, you need to look each other as individuals rather than student and the teacher. You must come out from that cell that you have created around yourself of being a formal teacher, because that would probably not allow you to mix with your students in terms of forming interpersonal relationship. But you need to be careful at that time, that your approach towards students may not be taken as liberty by students. Therefore, if you remember that your interpersonal relationship is equal, except that there is a lack of equality and and time. So you must also be clear about establishing this relationship between interpersonal relationship with your students, that they must not take liberty in terms of equality and time. Right. Moving ahead, when communication becomes interpersonal, individuals treat one another with greater respect and trust develops. That means, right, if you move beyond the formal teacher-student roles and start having an interpersonal communication with your student, that would further probably positively bring about greater respect to each other, and there must be establishment of trust between the teacher and the student. That would further help you in effectively managing your classroom and being an effective teacher. Further, the next step probably would be that if the trust develops between the teacher and the student, it becomes easier for students to ask stupid and risky questions, or the teacher may ask for feedback, and the student may ask for clarification. That means some kind of a conducive, positive environment is created in the classroom, where the limit of formality is negotiated for asking stupid questions, discussion beyond the topic, quick feedback, and clarification and inquiry. and interrogation, which is a hallmark of the close classroom participation. Moving ahead, all teachers know that such questions can make the difference between confusion and enlightenment in students, right? So, if you allow the student to ask risky and stupid questions, probably that would further help you in evaluating your student and and knowing whether the student is going on a right path from either confusion or enlightenment. As a teacher, you can probably differentiate between these two. Again, ego support may further help the students to ask risky questions because in through ego support the teacher creates the confident students who feel good about themselves, students who feel confident, who feel motivated, who feel important and part of the process. Usually, what happens like students do not ask certain questions because they think that they may be relegated as stupid and foolish. But if you practice ego support, they probably would not feel stupid and foolish. They would probably ask any question that comes to their mind. Therefore, trust and caring relationships must develop between teacher and student in order to be effectively create a safe learning environment. So, this if you practice ego support, referential skills, and immediacy behavior, that would probably create an environment of trust and caring, and create a relationship of trust and caring, and it create a safe environment of learning in a classroom. That would collectively probably would create certain kind of uh, you know effective classroom management. Now let's look at how the soft skills bring about difference in a classroom. Look at this final point. This is that learning such as recalling and comprehension can occur quite easily without human interaction. That if the student wants to learn these two skills of recalling and comprehension, that can be learned without the intervention of the teacher, without any interpersonal communication, without soft skills being practiced in a class. However, the the higher levels of learning such as analysis, synthesis and evaluation may require interaction between teachers and students, and here in terms of higher level of learnings we need what you call effective classroom management, what you call practicing of soft skills by the teacher, what you call practicing of immediacy behavior and content dimension by the teacher. However, if you remember, we had talked about that is there any difference between male and female students in terms of perception of communication skills and soft skills by the teacher? We must conclude that largely with a little difference where the female students think that oral communication is more important, right? Otherwise, there's no difference between male and female students in terms of their perception of the 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 soft skills and immediacy behaviors of a teacher. That means both male and female student probably perceive and observe the same kind of soft skills and immediacy behaviors of the teacher almost in a similar manner, or you can see that uh, whether it's a completely uh, uh, male classroom or a completely female classroom, or maybe it's a balance between male and female classroom, right? That can be managed. Practicing the similar kind of communication skills and immediacy behavior of the teacher, right? So there is largely no difference between the practicing of of the soft skills by the teacher and the perception by male and female students, right? Thank you so much for your patience and listening to me. Thank you so much, everyone. Now I request you to uh, ask questions, your queries, and any other doubt if you have.
Thank you, sir, for your marvelous presentation. We hope our participant also learn from you. I also learn from you. Thank you, sir.
Many thanks. It was
After
indeed
a
a
short video,
pleasure to. Right.
thank you, sir. It's our pleasure also. So after a short video clips, we are come back to our question and answer session. Welcome back, sir. Dear participants are requested to ask their question in comment box. Don't hesitate to ask the question. Our speaker also ready to answer the question. So our first question is from Bernardo. How to develop soft skills?
Right. Okay. So there are certain kind of critical opinions about this particular fact as to how to develop soft skills. Right. One of the things that is very clear is that soft skills are something, right, which has two dimensions. Right. Certain things which are which are the abilities you are born with, like confidence, like social sociability. That means, are you in a position to make friends with people? Are you social, or not? So these are certain kind of skills that you are born with, right? However, reading books about soft skills may not help you in developing soft skills, right? You need a constant training in order to develop soft skills, right? So there are certain institutes nowadays who are, who are training people in having certain kind of social skills, which we call soft skills, right? Or if you look at in hospitality industry or institutes of hospitality management, right? They are involved in soft skills. So what I'm trying to say right here, or the answer to your question, is that there are certain soft skills you are born with, but there are other soft skills which may be learned through training, observation, and perseverance. Right? If you are willing to develop certain kind of soft skills, then I would probably recommend you to attend certain kind of training imparted by various institutions, I think at many places, but I would also suggest you certain if you are willing to. Yes, I think I have satisfied you. Have you got your answer?
Thank you, sir. So our next question from Firoz Akbar. He is also our IGP speaker. In the 21st century, global communication refers to the use of English language as it is by far the most dominant one. How to bridge the gap between different nations conversing in English in terms of communication?
Right. So, are you trying to, if I have got the question right, that means English language is largely used as a way of communication in almost many countries, right? So, of course, bridging a gap, right, between different nations conversing in English in terms of communication is little challenging, and that is what comes in play right here is culture, right? So despite the fact that almost many of the countries practicing English language for conversation, right, cultural context is much different, right? So when you communicate across cultures, you must be aware about two particular facts that could probably mark the difference in cross cultural communication, and they are tolerance and acceptance, right? So, if you look at a particular speaker speaking from a particular country, he or she is speaking from a cultural context that he or she has been, born and brought up. Your cultural context may be much different, despite the fact you are communicating in the same language. So, if you practice tolerance and acceptance, probably speaking English language for conversation. This is my take on it. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Our next question is to the speaker. What is the role of soft skills in today's new system of education?
Well, new system of education is a little ambiguous. Which country are you talking about? Because in India we have new education policy, right? So it is much different, maybe from the education system of the country of the person who has asked this question, right? System of education means online mode of education, right? Probably soft skills have the similar kind of role to play as I have talked about within a classroom, right?
Our next question from Firoz Akbar. What are the some of essential qualities of effective communicators?
Right. So if you have looked at my presentation, right, I have talked about eight main qualities that the teacher must possess, or which are the similar qualities that must be possessed by effective communicator, right? If you want me to reiterate, I would like to tell you is that the first thing is the subject matter that you must possess, right? That means you must have a thorough knowledge of the subject matter that you are presenting. The next important is the expression, that of course your subject matter matters, but you must know how to express your subject matter, or you call content. And third is the confidence. You must have the confidence, right? However, if you have the subject matter and expression, confidence comes to you naturally, but at times it may not be there. So confidence is the next important quality that you must have, maybe followed by other points that I have mentioned in my presentation, right?
Thank you, sir. Our next question from Lambato Filaten to Dr. Kumar. Why are soft skills important in the classroom and organization?
Okay, so we had throughout the presentation, I have been reiterating this important fact that why do you need to have soft skills within the classroom and organization, right? So, if you look at the classroom context, I had talked about in order to effectively manage your classroom, you need to have soft skills, right? So that you can engage students, motivate them, encourage them, and ensure their participation within the classroom. If you look at the organizational context, probably you would find that the entire organization is constituted in terms of communication, right? What do you call an organization? The kind of communication that flows within the organization that decides the success and failure of the organization.
No.
So if you have that kind of organizational communication, that would probably help you in thriving your organization as such.
So our next question from Dr. Rajesh Narayan.
Okay, so I
Sir,
could read the next question
follow,
by yes.
should teacher can follow lesson plan practice for higher classes also?
Of course, the teacher must follow the lesson plan. Lesson plan means that I think those are the best teachers who always prepare for their class. At least, if not the exact lesson plan, they at least point out the points that they have to discuss within the classroom. However, I am also of the opinion that divergence in the class, right, make your class more interesting and motivating. When I say diversion, that means when you use referential style of telling stories and referring to certain kind of similar incidents, right? And connecting your lecture with the real life, right? That probably comes in a very spontaneous manner where the lesson plan exactly does not work. I hope I have answered your question, Avastiji.
So our next question is what activities can you suggest to improve our soft skills?
Right. So I think the best way, like you can have a number of activities, but the best way is that to listen to the important, effective speakers that would probably help you in improving your soft skills. Yes, any other question?
Sir, our next question is there an instrument to be used in hiring teachers?
Okay, so there is no, there are certain kind of, what you call researchers who have identified certain kind of parameters to hire teachers, right? And of course, if you could follow the kind of, dimensions that I have talked about, right? Probably that would help you in hiring good teachers. Like if you ask the teacher to make a demo, what you call demonstration of his teaching style, right? And you can see that there are relational and immediacy, what you call relational and content dimensions are there in his style of teaching. Probably that would be the best parameter of hiring a teacher.
Thank you, sir, for your remarkable presentation and outstanding questioning answer.
Many thanks.
So, thank you for your valuable time shared with us. And our participant also learns a lot from you. Thank you, sir. We hope we will meet together in another session in IGP.
Sure, sure, I'll do that. It was pleasure delivering this lecture right here and interacting with the participants. Many thanks for your participation, all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Shall I? Yes.
Sorry, sir.
Should I get disconnected? Leave the studio?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.